Why Mark?
Well, we announced some time ago that we were looking to put in place a better long-term structure at the club in terms of finances and just generally, a kind of underpinning structure that would help the club move forward in the future. And to that end, we spoke to a number of different people over the last few months, and one of those was Mark. And very quickly it became apparent that his style, his approach, his vision for the club were very much aligned to ours. And so we moved to kind of exclusive discussions with him, and those, of course, culminated in yesterday's agreement.
And just expanding on that, are you able to outline his plans for the club?
I think that's something that Mark's probably better placed to do than I am, and I know that he's intending to speak to you later in the week or early next week, and so I'd suggest that you pick that up with him.
Mike, why did you decide that this was the right decision for Dundee United to sell the club to this American businessman?
Well, as I said earlier, when I took on the chairmanship of the club, when Jimmy Fife and I basically took on the shareholding as well, we always treated it as a kind of stepping stone to a better long-term solution for the club, one that gave the club the right underpinning infrastructure, one that gave the club access to deeper pools of money to help this club get back to where we believe it should be, and to grow and thrive beyond that. And so that really was behind the whole transaction itself.
How much investment are we talking about?
Again, that's something I think you should pick up with Mark when you speak to him.
I guess
from
there'll be
perspective, stepping aside, how does that feel for you?
So I'm very, very happy for Dundee United. I think this is a really good day for Dundee United. I think this is the start of a bright new future for the club, and something that everybody associated with the club should be very happy about. From a personal point of view, it's been an absolute privilege to be chairman of Dundee United. I'm a lifelong fan, as I think you know, and to have been in the boardroom and then in the chairman's seat was really a dream come true for me. And so naturally, now that that's coming to an end, there's a kind of bittersweet element to it for me. So I'm a little bit sad to be moving on.
Would you have liked to have stayed on longer?
I was I was very happy to stay on longer. But I think what was more important was to do the right thing for the club. And the new buyer decided that he wanted to put in place a management structure that didn't include me, and I was very happy to agree to that.
I guess there'll be cynics out there that will say, Americans have come in, taken over. They'll be asking the question, what's in it for them? Why have they chosen Dundee United? I mean, of all the potential investments all around the world, they could have picked. Why United?
Scottish football's in not a bad place at the moment, and there are a lot of people looking at investing in European football overall, and they see Scotland, I think, as a very cost-effective route into that European market. We, as I mentioned earlier, talked to a number of people over the last few months, and the biggest single group were Americans. So there was actually, a number of other Americans as well interested in getting into Scottish football as a stepping stone into a broader European context. And Dundee United is seen as being a very attractive club within the Scottish football environment.
And you know what the football rumour mill is like. The jungle drums have been beating when there was talk of Americans coming in here, with Americans at the helm just up the road. A lot of fans suggesting that maybe some way down the line this might eventually lead to a ground share or a merger between the two clubs. Are you able to allay those fans' fears, anyone that might be thinking that, and did you have to seek assurances from Mark that that wasn't part of his plan?
I mean, we absolutely discussed the kind of merger thing, but literally for about 10 seconds. As far as we're aware, it's not on Mark's agenda. any other synergistic opportunities between the two Dundee clubs, I think, are, is something again for Mark to talk about when you speak to him.
Can you confirm the cost of the deal?
No, I can't.
And in terms of Mark, he's American based. What's kind of your thoughts on someone owning the club, I suppose, from Dundee, not from the country?
Well, what was important to us was to get the right owner in place. Somebody, as I said earlier, that we felt had good and proper aspirations for the club, that had very quickly got to grips with the kind of rich history of this club, its potential, its very loyal and passionate fan base, and so on. And Mark, kind of reassured us on all those fronts. He will put in place a management structure that I think will be appropriate for the club, and will help the club achieve ultimately its ambitions.
And how significant is this day in the history of Dundee United?
I think this is a massive day in the history of Dundee United. I think it's many, many years since Dundee United's been fortunate enough to have very strong financial foundations. And I think as a result of this deal, we've got that underpinning structure that is going to help propel the club back to where we want it to be.
And with the January transfer window just weeks away, I mean, is there assurances that now the deal's been put through, that funds will be in place for January? Again,
that's a question to take up with Mark, but it's something we did discuss with him.
Is it Mark as an individual or part of a group of individuals that's making the purchase?
It's Mark as an individual. He'll be joined on the board by his son Scott Ogren, but basically it's a family acquisition.
And obviously, people who've held the position that you've held for the last few months have obviously had an emotional tie, as you have, with the club itself. How much can you reassure fans that, you've mentioned that you have spoken to Mark about the history of the club, but how much do you think that could count, knowing the history of the club and him not having that emotional tie that you and others previous to you have had?
Yeah, well, I think there's at least a couple of things. Firstly, I believe that he fully understands the position this club represents in the Dundee community, in the broader Scottish community, and he's determined to actually, kind of cement its position in that community context. So he fully understands what it means to own A, a football club in Scotland, and B, to own Dundee United. And so, I feel good about his motives and his, I think he'll build a passion for this club that will benefit everybody associated with the club. Secondly, there will continue to be local involvement. Both Jimmy Fife and David Dorward, who are currently on the board, will stay on the board, and will provide that kind of on-the-ground connection and link with Dundee.
Has Mark given you any indication of his targets, ambitions for the club?
He has, but again, I think better place that you speak to him directly about that.
Would it have been a different situation had Dundee United not been still in the Championship and they'd been a Premiership club? Would you have sold on to the Americans?
That's a hypothetical question, and I really don't know the answer to that. All I do know is that that when Jimmy and I stepped in to take the roles that we've held over the last few months, it was always in the context of looking to put in place a better long-term solution.
How do you look back on your very short time as chairman here? Obviously, the goal last season of achieving a promotion wasn't achieved. How do you look back at the last few months?
Well, again, as I said earlier, the first thing I would say is it's been a real privilege. It's something that I feel very honoured to have been able to do. I have absolutely done my best for the club, and I hope that over the 9 or 10 months that I've been in the chairman's position, the club actually has moved forward, both on and off the pitch. And so I'm quite proud of what I've done. Not managed to get us back to the Premiership yet, but I think we're on that journey, and hopefully the new owner can complete that task.
Do you think you are leaving the club in a better position than when you took over?
I do.
Can I ask about Gussie Park? I mean, is that part of the purchase as well? It's him that owns that.
It will be. So the intention is still that the club will take back Gussie Park from me.